Thank you very much, Charles. And you know, when we think about the innovation of OpenStack, I think when Darren was up here, he had folks raise their hand, and there's some of you that are thinking about getting into OpenStack, and many of you that weren't sure. And what we're finding is a lot of that comes from not really being sure where to start or how to get started. And you don't have to use OpenStack, but if you choose to, Rackspace is in a great place to help you and provide that expertise and assistance. And actually, as we talk about that, one of the things that's happening in the OpenStack world, as it is across technology and cloud, is containers. And last year at the OpenStack Summit in Tokyo, we announced a new container service. We announced a container service called Carina. We had one technology leader, a great partner and customer of ours, already using it in a big way, and we're thrilled to have them here today to join and tell their story on the container journey. O'Reilly Media is solving the challenge of delivering compelling training experience at scale with the help of Rackspace Managed Cloud, and specifically including Carina by Rackspace. Here's a little bit more on O'Reilly.
I'm Andrew Odewahn. I'm the CTO of O'Reilly Media, and we're makers of technical animals on the cover. We identified a problem, which is that people are learning technologies in just a static book. Rather than reading, people want to use it directly and have an experience with it immediately. Rackspace has been with a lot of the back-end technology around containers and offer payments in ways that people can access. Carina to all to be able to thousands, millions of people who want to learn Spark, want to learn technology. One of the things I most appreciate about Carina is that it's got great APIs, so that if we want to create a new cluster, we can simply spin one up and have access to it within a minute. And that flexibility gives us great power to be able to do a lot of different things that we might not have even considered before.
So you'd seen him on the big screen, and now he's here with us in person. Please welcome the CTO of O'Reilly Media, Andrew Odewahn.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Thanks. As Ian said, I'm Andrew Odewahn. I'm the CTO of O'Reilly. And I always like to start with this slide just to be sure for people who don't know us. This is Bill O'Reilly from Fox. That is not us. We are Tim O'Reilly. Tim is the founder of O'Reilly Media, and this is him on the cover of Inc. magazine, talking about some of the things and the innovations that Tim has seen over the years. So, for example, the term open source was first popularized by an O'Reilly event. Web 2.0 is another term that came from O'Reilly, from an O'Reilly conference. And the first commercial ad was sold on the internet. So, for good or bad, we've had a really big track record of innovation. But what we're known mostly for are the books with the animals on the cover. So if you're a developer or you have managed developers, you've probably seen these books with the weird animals on the front. So that's us. But we also do events. We do OSCON, which is an open source conference coming up in May in Austin. We do Strata, which is a big data event where you can come and learn about all the new tools and things happening there. And Velocity, which is web ops and performance. And broadly, the company's mission is to spread the knowledge of innovators through its technology books, online services, magazines, research, and tech conferences. We were founded in 1978, and just in a garage in Newton, Massachusetts, and now have grown to 500 employees with offices in San Francisco, Beijing, Boston, London, and Tokyo. We're a privately held company, generally considered the largest independent technology publisher, and we host conferences, 15 conferences a year in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. And so for almost 40 years, O'Reilly has been the go-to resource for people who want to learn a technology. If you've got some new language you've heard about, or you've got a JavaScript framework that you're wondering about, or a new data science tool, O'Reilly has been the place that you've come to as a developer to really learn about those new innovations. But the key challenge now is that really the future doesn't look like a book. It's going to look like a much more rich, much more integrated experience. And so the challenge that we face is, how are we going to make this next generation of products? And I think this is really exemplified by this site, code.org. And this is a place where you can go and take challenges to learn how to program in different languages, and it's great for adults, but it's also great for kids. There's fun puzzles and things, really super engaging. But as you use this site, you're learning all sorts of things about code. I've done it with my kids, and it's a really fun, great way to learn. While I love it as a parent and as a person who is learning, it's this number, 91 million, nearly 100 million people that have seen it. It terrifies me as a publisher because not one of those people got the message, hey, why don't you also go buy this book on Python while you're at it, and then you can learn about programming. So it's a very, very existential threat or not threat, but it's a challenge to O'Reilly's core business, and then we need to have a response. So what does this future of technical learning look like? First, it's going to be interactive and immediate, right? You're just going to go to a site and you're going to use it. You're not going to have that first chapter of the book where you spend 2 days trying to figure out how you're going to install this thing and make it go. It's going to be multimodal. There's going to be video, there's going to be text, there's going to be things that are going to guide you. It's going to be collaborative, and this is especially true for professional settings, where you're going to be using GitHub to clone down something and do issue pull requests and forks and use issues and all the kinds of things that are happening in open source. That's going to be much more a part of the future of learning and engaging with this stuff. And it's going to be easy to use. It's not going to be a clumsy experience. If you can't offer a great experience with your learning product within the first few minutes, you're going to lose people because they're going to be accustomed to things like Codecademy and Code School and code.org, where they've had this great experience. And as we surveyed the landscape of what is this going to look like, what are the tools that we could use, Jupyter Notebooks rapidly came to the top as the thing that we needed to begin to support. Now, if you're not familiar with that tool, it came out of the scientific computing community. It was started by 2 physicists, Brian Granger and Fernando Perez, both at Berkeley. And what it lets you do is write an analysis with text and with images and with pictures and with code, but that code is runnable right inside your document. And so, if you have a Python example that's an analysis, you can click a run button and the output will be generated dynamically and stored in your document. So it really becomes a living record of the analysis that you're doing. And this tool has become incredibly popular in the data science community because you can take really complex things and share it with people and share the environment as well. And it's not just limited to one language. There's 50 different languages. So if you're doing R or Julia or Python or Scala, you can use the Jupyter Notebooks with this platform. So because of that, it's got about 1.5 million users, and the project recently got a $6 million grant to really take it and bring it out to a much wider range of people. So not just data scientists, but journalists or people doing social science research are going to begin expanding this. So we see this as as going to become a mainstream tool that people are going to be using and sharing. So the key challenge for us is, how do we create this compelling experience and the kinds of things that you saw in the video? How do we create that at scale and offer that to people? And this is really where our relationship with Rackspace began. So, as you know, Rackspace is an incredible contributor to open source, OpenStack. There's a lot of projects that they are involved with and do a lot of great work with. Jupyter is one of them. So one of the members of their developer experience team, Kyle Kelly, is one of the core contributors to the Jupyter Notebook. And I was talking with Fernando Perez from the Jupyter project about the challenges that we face in trying to adopt that platform. And he said, hey, you should go talk to this guy, Kyle. He's at Rackspace. Go see what he has to say. So I had a meeting with Kyle. We had this conversation about it. And he said, if you're a customer, I will help you. And that was a really powerful statement, because it's not like we were some huge customer that was, spending millions and millions of dollars. We had a challenge, a business challenge, and Kyle was going to help us. And my main experience with other, cloud providers had mostly been, I give them a credit card and they give me an API key, and that's the end of the transaction. And so as we talked and we sort of iterated through what the solutions are, we came up with a solution called TempNB. And it's an open source project that is part of Jupyter, but it's also supported by Rackspace. And the idea is essentially you package this Jupyter notebook, but it could be any kind of container, into a Docker container. You put your content and you put the dependencies that it has into the container as well. And then you start a big pool of them. And the pool runs on a cluster. And when a user comes to comes to get the content, they're proxied to one of those running containers, and it becomes their container for the period that they're using it. And they're ephemeral, right? So if somebody's taking a 15 or 20-minute piece of content, in a chunk, they get that container temporarily, and then when they're done with it, it's just disposed of, and those resources go back into the pool so that another user can use them. And we began this process just running it on the bare metal clusters, and it worked really, really well. So based on the strength of that initial success that we had, we said, well, let's give this a real test. Let's put a real-world environment where people are actually learning. So at Strata, New York, we enlisted one of the tutorial leaders, a guy named Paco Nathan, who's a data scientist, to say, could we basically use you as a guinea pig for this experiment? And the idea was he was trying to teach people the math behind a lot of the machine learning algorithms and the things. So what we were going to do is when you attended the session, you could go to a site and you could get the same material that Paco was running, and you could try it and use it yourself in the browser. So you could really follow along and use support vector machines and all these sorts of things that he was talking about. And where I really sort of got the message of what fanatical support meant from Rackspace, first Kyle came. He came to the event from San Antonio, and then what was really fanatical to me, is he attended this tutorial on linear algebra, which I can't imagine many people say, I'm going to New York to go to a linear algebra tutorial. And then as the session went on, he basically rewrote our Nginx configurations on the fly to help us course correct as we went, and really just kept things going on a really, really even keel. And we had a great, great experience and a great response from people being able to learn that way. So because of that, we were able to relaunch a lot of the things that we're doing on O'Reilly.com to incorporate these Jupyter aspects, right? So you can go to a tutorial on support vector machines and use a support vector machine in the browser and change the parameters and see what the effect is. And we've had an amazing response time. So a lot of our former articles might have 30, 45 seconds, which is pretty typical on the web. These things have 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. People spending a lot of time there because there are these engaging elements. And that's what we really look for when we look at what's a solid learning product. And based on the success of that, we hope to launch later this year a new paid product that's going to incorporate many more of these elements, but just really kind of amped up to the next level. But we have another key challenge, right? And you heard earlier this morning John talk about this expertise gap, right? We're a traditional company. Even though we're in the tech, even though we publish in the tech industry, we're not a tech company, we're a publisher. So how do we manage, scale, and operate a Docker cluster? Or as I like to think about it, how do we do all the stuff that's in the books that we publish and in the conferences that we give? And this is where Carina by Rackspace is really a tremendous asset for us. If you're getting into Docker and you're just looking at that whole space, because there's a lot of, it's very new, there's a lot of influx, Carina is a must-try product for you. It's fully hosted Docker Swarm, so you get a cluster of Docker, a Docker cluster. It's easy to set up. You can create a cluster and get it going in just 45 seconds. It's available in cloud, so at getcarina.com or on-premise, and it's a free beta, so you don't really have anything to lose, and you can go point your developers at them, and they can run with scissors over there while they're learning, and then you get that experience with it, and it's really great. And the things I like about it is, first, there's this awesome command line interface. So if you want to set up a cluster, you can just do it right from installing a very simple single binary file, and it's 3 commands. And this one screen represents the totality of getting a 3-node scalable auto-scale Docker cluster. You do Carina ls to see what you have. You do Carina create to make a new one, and then you do Carina env to set all the TLS credentials that you need to start using Docker. And then boom, you're done. There's an API for building new services. So this is a project that I've been working on called LaunchBot, and the idea of that is if you want to give people a simpler way to to launch containers that you want them to have, but they don't like the command line. This is like a GUI interface for it. And we were able to build this and incorporate elements of Carina right into it so you could launch onto Carina because they have these great open APIs. Third, it's backed by the fanatical support of Rackspace. You know, this is Kyle again. I opened an issue on the Carina API, on the Carina command line tool, and I wanted a special feature. And that same day, he read it, got it, committed it, and closed it. You know, and it was done, and it was available to me right that same day. And that's an amazing level of support, and it's also done in an open source way, so it feels like other projects feel. And that's really a great thing when you're working and being able to help, as engineer to engineer, work with the team that's making the product. So I just want to leave you with a couple of lessons that we learned innovating in a traditional industry. The first is what I'm thinking of as BYODC. You might know BYOD, bring your own device. This is bring your own data center, right? If you're a traditional company and you're looking to innovate, I can't overstate the power of pay-as-you-go monthly billing on a credit card for these incredible cloud resources. I mean, there's just a wealth of things that are available to you. The second is look closely at Go. I think the Go language, it's easy to learn, it's super fast, it's really easy to deploy. You can compile across any number of platforms into a single binary, and you just put it up and it runs, and it's great. We had been using Ruby before, and managing that, Ruby and Rails, and managing that was just a nightmare all the time. Go is awesome. The third is include a designer on your core team. This is something, as you're building a new innovation and you're building a new product, if it looks real, people are going to believe it. I'm a developer. The kinds of things that I come up with when I make things, look, I can't match my own socks, you know, but like you give it to a designer and it looks incredible, people see it and they believe it. It really helps grease the wheel for bringing those innovations to light. Fourth, start with a project, not a company initiative. You know, if you have a small team that's working and really focused on the sort of greenfield projects that Graham was talking about, you know, they're just going to get run over if you're trying to tackle some huge company initiative that crosses all the different organizations and constituencies. And then finally, the biggest early problem is often customer indifference. It's not scale. You know, I was terrified when we launched some of these Jupyter notebooks that, oh my God, you know, what if 1 million people come and the system crashes and it can't scale? And what I really should have been thinking is, you know, what if nobody comes? And that's the much more likely result, is that nobody's going to care what you're doing. And what you need to focus on as an innovation team is building the features and the design and the things that are going to create business value that are going to bring people to the site. And then, when you're ready to scale, know that you have companies like Rackspace with the different support that they can bring and that they can offer across a wide variety of cloud hosting platforms there to help you take the next step. So again, my name's Andrew Odewahn. I'm at Odewahn on Twitter, and DM me if you have questions, or I look forward to meeting you at the event. Thank you.